All right, let's just get right into it. We're talking about belly fat. You know, that stubborn, super frustrating fat that so many of us are trying to get rid of. But what if almost everything you've heard about it is kind of wrong? Today, we're going to break down the actual science of how you can burn it, and we're using the amazing work of metabolic scientist Dr. Ben Bikman as our guide. So forget the myths. This is the real, science-backed explain.
Now this probably sounds completely backward, right? Belly fat wants to be burned. What Dr. Bikman means is that this specific type of fat is uniquely ready to be used as fuel. The issue isn't the fat itself, it's the signals our body is sending it. And if we can just change those signals, we can finally unlock this massive energy source.
So, before we jump into the how-to, we really need to understand why belly fat is so much more than just something you don't like seeing in the mirror. It all comes down to how our body stores it, and the huge chain reaction of problems that specific storage method kicks off.
Okay, this right here is the heart of the matter. You see, healthy fat gain, the kind you might see on your hips or thighs, happens through something called hyperplasia. That just means your body creates more tiny, healthy fat cells. But that dangerous belly fat, that grows through hypertrophy. Your body doesn't make new cells, it just puffs up the ones you already have to a massive, really unhealthy size.
And when I say massive, I mean it. A single fat cell can swell up to be 10, even 20 times its original size. Just stop and think about that for a second. There is no other cell in your entire body that can do that. It's like taking a water balloon and filling it and filling it and filling it way past its breaking point.
So what happens when these cells get way too big? Well, they panic. To stop themselves from literally bursting, they become insulin resistant. They stop listening to the growth signal. Then they start leaking fat right into your bloodstream. They get so big they're pushed away from their oxygen supply and they start to suffocate. And then a last-ditch effort to get help, they start screaming, releasing all these inflammatory proteins that just flood your entire system. This isn't just a local problem in your belly anymore, it's a whole body crisis. And check out this real-world example from Dr. Bikman's work. You have two men, different ethnic backgrounds, and they gain the exact same amount of weight. For the Caucasian man, whose body tends to make more fat cells, it's mostly a cosmetic issue. But for the Chinese Asian man, whose genetics favor swelling the existing cells, that same weight gain triggers a whole bunch of diseases. See, it's not about how much fat you gain, it's all about how your body stores it.
Okay, so if this hypertrophic or swelling fat is the problem, what's telling our body to do it in the first place? What is the master signal here? Well, it turns out there's one hormone that's basically running the whole show.
And all comes down to insulin. Insulin is your body's #1 growth signal. It's not evil. In fact, you die without it. Its main job is to go around to literally every single cell in your body, knock on the door, and tell it, hey, take in some energy and grow. And the key phrase there is every single cell. So this finally helps us settle that old calories versus hormones debate. Which one matters more for fat loss? Dr. Bikman says that's the wrong question. You absolutely need both. Think of it like this. Insulin is the signal telling the fat cell to get bigger, but the calories, that's the fuel that actually makes it happen. You can't have growth without both the signal and the fuel.
This quote really shows you insulin's incredible power. If insulin is low, a fat cell has no choice but to shrink. It doesn't matter how many calories you eat. And the most tragic proof of this is an eating disorder called diabulimia, which affects some people with type 1 diabetes. They can eat thousands and thousands of calories, but by not taking enough insulin, they can't gain weight because that growth signal from insulin is missing.
And that brings us to the real villain of the story. It isn't insulin. It's having chronically high insulin all the time. When your body's just constantly screaming, grow, 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 your cells eventually get tired of listening. That's insulin resistance. And it's the hidden root cause of so many chronic diseases we see today. And it can be quietly building up for decades before your blood sugar ever looks abnormal on a test.
Now, I know this might sound a bit like abstract science, but here's the thing. Your body gives you really clear warning signs that this is happening. These are real, physical things that you can actually look for.
So, does any of this sound familiar? Dr. Bikman points to these as huge clues. Things like high blood pressure, little skin tags, especially around your neck and armpits, that dark, kind of velvety-looking skin on your neck, hormonal issues like PCOS, or getting diagnosed with a fatty liver. These aren't all separate random problems. They are very often just different symptoms pointing back to the same single root cause: insulin resistance.
So how can you know for sure? It's pretty simple, actually. You can ask your doctor for a fasting insulin test. You see, a regular blood glucose test can look perfectly normal for years, even decades, while your insulin is silently creeping up and causing damage behind the scenes. A fasting insulin test, on the other hand, gives you that real early warning picture of what's actually going on with your metabolic health.
All right, that's enough about the problem. Let's get to the good stuff, the solutions. Now that we actually get the science, we can put together a toolkit of really powerful strategies to get our insulin down and finally tell our bodies, okay, it's time to burn this fat.
So one of the most direct ways to lower your insulin is to get control of your carbohydrates. When you do that, your body is forced to switch its main fuel source from sugar to fat. And as your liver burns more and more fat, it produces these things called ketones. So if you're producing ketones, it's not just some diet fad, it is direct biological proof that your insulin is low and your body is in full-on fat-burning mode.
You know, Dr. Bikman has this brilliant car analogy for this. Think of your regular white fat, your storage fat, as a slow-moving car with a slow engine. But then you have this other kind, brown fat. It's super metabolically active. It's like a car that's stuck in neutral, but with the engine just revving like crazy, burning through fuel just to create heat. And what's so cool is that when you're in a low insulin state, you can actually start to beige your white fat, basically making it act more like that fuel-guzzling brown fat.
And what about exercise? Well, it absolutely works, but for a really specific reason. Intense exercise raises a hormone called epinephrine. You might know it as adrenaline. And what's amazing about epinephrine is that research shows it selectively targets belly fat, telling it to break down and get used for energy. And the best part? Dr. Bikman's advice is so simple. The best exercise is whatever you'll actually do and stick with.
Okay, and here is a really surprising tool you may not have heard of: a rare type of sugar called allulose. You see, most sweeteners are just neutral. They don't really help, they don't really hurt. But allulose is different. It's actively good for you. It actually gets in the way of fructose, blocking it from being absorbed. And it gives a huge boost to a hormone called GLP-1, which, believe it or not, is the exact same hormone that those popular new weight loss drugs target to crush your hunger and cravings.
So, there you have it. The science is pretty clear. Belly fat isn't just some stubborn problem we have to live with. It's a signal. And by focusing on lowering your insulin, through the food you eat, through exercise, maybe even with a few of these surprising new tools, you can change that signal. You can turn your body into a fat-burning machine. The power is completely in your hands. So now the only question left is, which tool are you going to pick up first?